Welcome to the final video in the Minimum Holistic Goal Creation mini course. By now you've done the work and created a concise and powerful minimum holistic goal that speaks to your big why. The amount and depth of introspective visioning work you have done puts you into a strong position to begin designing, planning, and creating a homestead to match your ideal lifestyle and values. You've also learned the critical questions to ask yourself and your fellow decision makers to help you make the best design and management decisions for your homestead while navigating the turbulent times in which we live. With the 7 decision tests, you have simple critical thinking tools that you can use in the moment as decisions need to be made to actually leverage all of the clarity gained from creating your minimum holistic goal. So what's next? You've got your MHG and practical ways to apply it. Where to from here? If you're at the design or perhaps the redesign phase, the next thing you need to do is get clear on your context. Context is our catch-all term for all the things that will directly or indirectly influence what your homestead will ultimately need to become. Context is the specific confluence of factors that necessitate a unique homestead that fits your life and your landscape. The good news is you've already established one of the most critical parts of your context. You fulfilled the first commandment of good design, know thyself. Everything in your MHG came from within you, and knowing the lay of your internal landscape is just as important as developing a deep knowledge of the external one. The next critical step to take in preparing yourself to design a homestead that actually works, the second commandment, if you will, is to know thy land and bioregion. You need to develop a basic understanding of all the site-specific characteristics of your land and bioregion that should inform your homestead design decisions. At a minimum, you've got to know the following. Climate factors. These are things like temperature, precipitation, sun, and wind. For temperature, you got to know your annual averages and your historic extremes. Additionally, your USDA growing zone, your growing conditions, and any climate analogs, any other places around the world or even in your local area that are similar to your climate. That can help you predict what species are going to do well there and what types of systems are profitable to run there. For precipitation, same deal. You've got to know your annual averages and your historic extremes because you're going to design to the extremes. And you've got to know your annual distribution. How is that moisture distributed in your climate throughout the year? Is it concentrated during a short winter wet season like out west? Or in the northeast, east, and southeast, is it more humid the year round? Is that moisture distributed more evenly throughout the entire year? For sun, you got to know your sun angles, your solar insolation, that's the total amount of solar energy impacting your landscape, and the total sunny days per year. For wind, you got to know your seasonal, storm, and daily wind patterns. You also have to know landform factors such as topography, soils, the underlying geology of your landscape, and existing erosion patterns. For topography, that means things like slope of your landscape, solar aspect, what direction is that slope facing with regards to the sun, your key points and your key lines, and unique landscape features. For soils, you want to know the parent material data, its current health and fertility, and perhaps even soil test data. For underlying geology, we're really talking about aquifers and groundwater. You want to know what groundwater resources are available in your area. And finally, erosion patterns. You want to know the existing surface water flow patterns on your land. You want to catalog any existing problem sites. You want to know your runoff coefficients and your infiltration rates because all of that's going to come into play when you're redesigning your landscape to be water retentive. You want to know your historical land use factors. So these are things like historical documents that document the chain of ownership or tenure or usurpation or habitation. Existing vegetation patterns are also very helpful to catalog. By cataloging the existing flora on site, you can actually get a picture of what the land is currently capable of supporting and what it might be moving towards. The plants can tell you a lot about what's going on in the soil and what has happened there in the past. Neighbor interviews are incredibly valuable. It's great to learn from people who have seen the land evolve over time. And finally, you want to know the location of all of your subterranean infrastructure, especially if you're working with previously developed land. This can include pipes, power lines, septic tanks and leach fields, old dump sites, all really important to know. And finally, you got to, as much as you may not want to, dive into any legal restrictions that affect your landscape. So we're talking zoning regulations, utility easements, development restrictions, anything coming from the Department of Making You Sad. You want to know these things in advance so the Department of Making You Sad doesn't come and show up and make you even more sad. With that, this concludes the Minimum Holistic Goal Creation course. Thank you for investing your time and energy into doing this foundational work. I sincerely hope that you've gained greater clarity on what you value most, and how you can actually design your life and your homestead to help you live out those values to their fullest. The work you've completed in this course is some of the most valuable introspective work you can do, especially in these times when so much of our mainstream culture is literally designed to distract your focus and drain your life energy into pursuits that actually degrade your quality of life instead of improving it. I may not know exactly what brought you to signing up for this course in the first place, but what I do know 100% is that I created it for people like you that are consciously moving in the direction of increasing sovereignty and self-ownership. So with that said, if you gain something from this course, I'm going to ask you to pay it forward. You probably have at least one other person in your inner circle that is ready to do this work. Please share it with them. Help them gain the same clarity and power that you are experiencing now. I often say on the podcast to share it with 3 people, 2 that you know will love it, and 1 person that might be a bit of a stretch. I'm asking you to be bold, be brave, and be the light for those other people in your life that are looking for a better way. Together, we can create a world worth inheriting and become ancestors worthy of remembrance. And with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. Until next time, keep your head up and your heart open. I'll see you then.